Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Foundations of Programming, day 14, I believe. Thank you guys for showing up uh, on Friday. I know it's the end of the week. Everyone's tired, but for those of you guys that showed up, thank you guys. We have a couple people from Florida who are absent today due to the hurricane. Um, but hopefully it turned out okay. For those of you guys that are here, today we're going to be covering the next lesson, I believe it's lesson 10. Yeah, lesson 10. Read and write files. This kind of just like the end of working with uh honestly with like Python and just how to create different programs. Everything else after this will be data structures and algorithms. But uh hope you guys are doing good. Let's go ahead and start this lesson. We'll jump straight into it. I know today's a very small class. Um, so depending on how the class goes, we might finish a little early. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. If you guys have the slides, you're more than welcome to follow along. This is a fairly simple lesson. It only has 15 slides, so it's gonna go very quick. Most of the learning is actually on the assignment itself. So we're going to start the slideshow. So lesson 10, reading and writing files. So files. So files are ubiquitous in computing. Having a place to store data that persists and is retrievable is very valuable, right? There are two kinds of files essentially, right? In the most basic way of describing this is we have our text files, files that are human readable, like your app.py, right? Where you're creating your JavaScript or your HTML, your JavaScript files, your Python files, if you have text files, all these files here that you have like a readable code, whether it's in Python, JavaScript, whatever kind of language you're coding in, those are your text files, right? And then you have your binary files, usually not human readable, like a picture, right? Dot JPEG. If you try to read the content of the JPEG, you're not going to be able to read anything. Um, the first time I really realized there was different types of files was actually during the immersive program. During the immersive program, they I'm sorry guys if I do cough. I am still sick. I'm recovering. Uh, but I am here fighting it. So during the immersive program, you guys are gonna get the chance to do group projects. So when I went through Coplatoon, uh, Uniform Platoon, uh, my group decided to make a video game for our group project. Typically, it's not really allowed. As you guys recall, I believe I told you guys that there are requirements to what your projects are going to be that you have to meet. So it would require certain things like, oh, it has to be like, it has to have a third-party API, right? Or it has to have like user login. It has to have like yada yada, right? Different requirements. I don't exactly recall the requirements for the group project, right? But we were able to kind of pitch it to the instructors, and somehow we got it approved. We got it approved for us to build a video game using frameworks that was not taught to us throughout the immersive program. So the group project was built in 2 weeks, right? We had 2 weeks to do it. So we had 2 weeks to learn something completely brand new, right? Our project involved using Godot, right? So we didn't use anything that was taught to us throughout the immersive program. The only thing that we leveraged as developers to build a game was the fact that we knew how to code in Python, right? We knew how coding worked, right? We knew coding principles thanks to the immersive program. And then we also knew how to use GitHub, right? Which was the biggest thing when working with a group project. So as you guys recall from our GitHub class in Git, uh, it allows you to keep a version, right, of your project, right? It's used for version control. You can collaborate with other people, all everybody on the same project, and different people can be doing different things within this project, while at the same time keeping the same version of what the main branch is doing and everyone can kind of like pitch in their work without affecting the main branch. Right? That's the awesome thing about Git and GitHub. So when we were working with Git and GitHub, we were using the Godot uh, game engine. That's what we call is what it's called, right? An engine. Um, and Godot is it's an open source game engine, right? And it's fairly new to GitHub and Git. Uh, and what happened was that we were all working on different parts of this game. I was working on my main character. But because GitHub and Godot, they were brand new to each other, uh, there were still some issues that was going on. What was happening is when one of us was making changes to the documentation, right? Specifically the images, right? We were uploading our characters, right? I was uploading the main character. Somebody else was updating, like for example, like the pots, right? Some breakable pots that you can break that have health potions. They're breaking things, and these things had images, right? These were like the assets that we were using. For some reason, when Godot was being, the Godot files were being loaded onto GitHub, it didn't read it properly. So there was errors. And then when we were doing our merges, we were reviewing what the conflicts were. I'm talking like hundreds of lines of unreadable code. Uh, Somewhere along the lines is like the specific code for whatever image file was not being loaded properly onto GitHub. Um, and that was like my first experience of like dealing with binary files. Um, and at first glance, you don't even know what the heck you're looking. So it honestly took like a week before we kind of got the hang of it. Like, oh, this is what's happening, right? Our images aren't being loaded properly on GitHub, and it's being corrupted. So then when we, download or we pull from GitHub and pull the new changes, it's corrupting everything else. Um, so we kind of had to learn how to like read through all these binary files and figure out where the things were going wrong. Uh, that's a little sidetrack, but yeah. So text files and binary files, right? So yeah, two different types of files. Text files are just things that you are able to read. Binary files are not very pretty, unreadable, but that's gonna be like your pictures or your dot MP3s, right? All right, so let's read and write files. So we're gonna start by opening the file with the correct path name and the parameter R to read. All right, so what I want you guys to do is I want you guys to open up the assignments. You should have it, and your FOP should be less than 10. What you're gonna do is you're gonna create a new actually we don't need we're not gonna do this. Stand by. Don't do anything yet. We'll just talk through it. It will make more sense if we actually do the assignments. So the way that works, let's talk through it with this code snippet. So we start by opening the file with the correct path name and the parameter R to read, W to write, or A to append. So what is that saying? So let's check it out. So here, this is Python code, by the way. In this code snippet, we have in line 1, we have a variable called infile, right? They declare this variable, and then they are using some method here. And this method is called open, right? And this is just like the method that is used to open up files with Python. This is the specific method to use. What happens is that you have to use the command open. The first parameter you give it is going to be the correct path name, right? So where that file is located. Think back to the object-oriented programming Space Invaders, right? Trying to find the paths to our assets, right? So the correct path name for the file that you are trying to upload. The second argument it's going to take is what you want to do to that file, right? Do you want to read it? Do you want to write? Or do you want to append to it? So that second parameter is going to be what you want to do with it, okay? Now, once it does that, it's going to open that file and it's going to load it and save it into this infile variable, right? So once this method goes through, right, this returns the stuff to this variable called infile. And essentially it's open and it allows you to read it. So once you've opened the file, you can read the first line like this. Notice they create a different variable. It's called line. What do they assign to this variable? They assign to it the file that's been opened in file, and they use a method called read line. Right? This specific method will read the first line of that file. Right? It reads the first line of that file. Next, we have a new variable called line stripped. Right? This line stripped is a brand new variable. They call the line variable they just declared here on line 3. Right? And they use the method dot strip. This is a method unique to Python. I believe JavaScript has one too. Essentially, what strip is doing, it is removing any white spaces, right? Any open spaces that are in the text. So what does that mean? So what happens is your text files typically they might have like a space at the end, but you don't see it, right? Because it's just like an empty string, right? But there's like an imaginary space there that's it's taking up space and you don't see it. So what the dot strip does, it removes any kind of spacing where it might affect how it loads, right? So they strip the spacing by using the dot strip method, and then they print line strip, right? Notice that when they're done reading from the file, they have to manually close it, right? They do infile dot close. They call back to the file they opened up, and they use the dot close method. They opened it and then they have to close it. So once you're done working what you got to work on within that file, you want to close the file. If you do it in this manner, there's two ways that we're going to talk about how to open and read files, right? This is one way of doing it, right? This is one way. All right, this is the second way of doing stuff, right? By using the with open syntax, right? So what if I want to read all the lines of my file, but with using the with syntax, it will close the file automatically. So let's go back. Let's compare and contrast here. On slide 3, we created a variable, and then we had to open up the file and we saved that file within that variable, right? That's how we opened and read this file. Here it's different. We didn't save nothing to anything directly, right? We kind of just switched up the syntax a little bit. Notice that we start line 1 with the word with open and close parentheses. We put the file path, and then we put how we want to open up this file, whether we want to read, write, yada yada. And then we say as in file, right? So what changed here? It's backwards, right? It's backwards. Here we saved, we instantiated the in file and then open up the file and then saved into it. Here it's almost like if you think back to when you import a class from a different file, what do? We do like from yada yada, import this, add this, whatever, right? They're kind of doing something very similar to that. With open up dogs.txt, read it, and then open it as in file. You're essentially giving it an alias, right? You're giving this open readable file an alias, so that way you're able to call it and use methods on it, right? Next, on line 2, they do for line in file. What is in file? It's this open readable text file that we just opened up on line 1. They're able to loop through everything in it. For line in file, they're doing print. They're printing the line, but as they're printing it, they're also stripping the edges, right? And this is what we get back in the console, right? This is the dogs.txt file that we just saw, right? That they're opening here. Notice it's just 5 different lines. 5 different lines. Husky, German Shepherd, Chihuahua, Shih Tzu, Beagle, right? Let's actually manually do this. Let me open up a text file, guys. Uh, okay. Let me create a new text file. This is going to be our dogs.txt. All right. Okay. So this is my notepad. We are going to replicate this, right? We do Husky, German Shepherd, Chihuahua, Shih Tzu, and a Beagle. What you guys don't see here, right? Every time I press enter to go to the next line, there is a space between Husky and German Shepherd. By pressing enter, I am actually placing a space between both of these words, right? There's a whole space within here. And you're going to see how that works, right? So we have this. We're going to go ahead and save this bad boy. Save as dog.txt. Right, I'm going to save this on my desktop just for easy access. Right? Now, back to my lesson. I'm going to create that new file. Right here, new file. I'm gonna call this read write .py. So I wonder if I can move it in here. Where's that dog? .txt. It's not gonna work. Whatever. Whatever. Actually, that might be an issue. As a matter of fact, I can just do it here. My bad. I don't know what I'm doing. We can make the text file here. We do dogs.txt. You can make a text file within the same directory. Save yourself some time. I don't want to type this out all over again. So let me copy this, close it up, put it in here, save. All right. So what happened? We did with open, right? With open, what are we opening up? Dogs.txt. Comma, how do we want to do it? I want to read, and I want to open it as in file, right? Now, after it's open, notice, after we open it, put a colon, then what? It's open. It is currently open. So everything falls from here is what I'm doing now that this file is open, right? For line in file, I want to print out a line. Let's look at what that does for me. Let's exit this. I don't know why I opened up Python here. CDFOP, CD lesson 10, Python, read. Okay. Look at. Notice Husky, German Shepherd, Chihuahua, Shih Tzu. There is some weird funkiness happening here, right? Some weird funkiness happening here. There is like a huge, there's like a whole piece of empty string, right? Empty string. But technically, there shouldn't be anything. Look at my text file, right? All I did was press enter, right? But it's going to count all this as empty space, right? So to get rid of that, we have to use the dot strip method, right? The dot strip method. And then once we go ahead and print it out, notice that, sorry, I don't know why I have a backward slash, right? It gets rid of all that extra spacing and now it's formatted like it should be formatted, right? So that dot strip method, you kind of have to do it, right? I'm not just pulling this out of thin air. Like that's what happens if you don't strip your text file, right? You just get all this extra spacing because it's taking into account the fact that you're pressing enter within that that notepad, that text file, and enter isn't just nothing. It is a spacing, right? It is spacing. It is formatting your document. Awesome. So that's how we do the with open. So what if I try to read a file that's not there? So let's see. Uh, with open, we're gonna say open dogs2. Obviously, dogs2 does not exist. Notice we get an error. No such file or directory dogs2.txt, right? But this example allows us to do something uh, by using the try method. Right, so the try and except block so we can handle our errors. So try, open the document, right? And then we can do except file not found error. And then print something out once we don't find it. The file was not found. Right? Because obviously this is gonna run and it's gonna fail because docs2 doesn't exist. And it's gonna raise a file not found error. Luckily, our except block catches it and it tells us what happened. And it keeps the program from stopping, and we can see here that we get our customized print method. Right? So let's write to a file. So we talked about reading from it. Now we're going to write. So we're gonna create that list within the slides, which is a cat list. So cat list. We have Siamese. Those are cute, I guess. I don't know what a Manx is. I'm a dog person. A Abyssinian and a Savannah. Now, we're gonna say with open, right, cats.txt. We are going to write, and I want to open up this file as an out file. So we are writing here. Notice that we put a W here. We are writing, not reading, we are writing. So there's going to be something different that's going to happen. Earlier, we tried to read through the dogs2.txt, but obviously dogs2.txt didn't exist, right? We only had dogs.txt, not dogs2. So we got the file was not found, right? Here, we're going to try and write into a file that does not exist, right? Earlier, we were trying to read. Here, we're trying to write into it, right? So with open cats.txt, I want to write, and I want to give an alias to this file as out file, and I'm gonna say for cat in cat list, right? I'm already looping through the list I created. I'm going to say out file, right? I'm calling the file that I have open, and I'm gonna use the method write. What do I want to write? I want to write the cat, and then after the cat, I want to concatenate it with /n. And we'll see what that does. So let's go ahead. Notice, right? This is where my files are at. There's nothing but docs.txt, read write.py in the readme. And then I run this file and watch how cats.txt populated here. I did not get an error, but it created my cats.txt. When I try to read into a file that does not exist, it will give me an error, right? But if I try to write into a file that does not exist, it'll create it for me, right? And it'll move forward as intended. We open up our cats.txt, and we see the Siamese, Manx, Abyssinian, Savannah, Abyssinian, and the Savannah cats are in here, right? So it successfully looped through my cat list, and then it wrote into my file. And notice, how did I write into it? Let's look at line 5. I did outfile.write. I called the file by its alias that I assigned it. I used the .write method, and then I did a string concatenation here, right? I concatenated the string for every string that I was grabbing from this catalyst, and then I concatenated it with /n. What is /n doing for me?
Just new line.
It's creating a new line. That's absolutely correct. I believe you guys should have learned this part of the pre-work. If I don't have that new line, notice that when I run this, we can go back to our cats.txt and notice that my Siamese, Max, Abyssinian, and the Savannah are all on the same line, right? There's no spacing, nothing, there's no formatting, because it's going to write directly into my text exactly what I tell it to. If I don't tell it to add a new line, it won't add a new line, right? It won't differentiate what is what. So you kind of have to format it to ensure that that text file is written the way that you want it to be written. All right.
Hey, Roger, can you zoom in 1 or 2 times on your VS Code when you get a chance?
Of course. That should be good. Nothing in the code today should be too in depth, so that should be more than enough. All right, so we have the cat. We added cats plus /n. All right, let's go back to our slides. So that took care about writing into a file. So everything in a file is a string. You must convert all integers, floats to strings before writing them to a file. Make sure to add the new line character /n to the end of it, so each number is on a separate line. So let's try this again. Something different. All right, so we're gonna say with open, we are gonna open a file. We can call this numbers.txt, right? And because we're writing on it, it doesn't have to exist because we're going to create one as we do it. We'll say as out file, colon, and then we are gonna say for num in range of 10, and then we can say out file dot write. Right, we're gonna want to write what our num in here, but num needs to be a string, so we need to add our string wrapper around num, and then also on top of that, we need to ensure that we added a new line, so we can do plus /n, and then when we run this, notice that our numbers.txt file gets populated here on the left. We can open it up and we see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I don't like that. Let's get 1 through 10, so we can say 1 and 11. And now they should give us a much better formatted count. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So pretty cool, guys. Right, so it has to be a string. Notice we had numbers, which were going to be integers. We had to convert them to strings using the string wrapper. Do I have any questions so far, guys? I want to make sure I don't lose anybody.
When you use the with, do you have to at the end of it, once it leaves it, will it close the file automatically, or do you need to close it or check?
That's a great freaking question, Mike. Great question. It will close automatically. All right, so going back to the first example, if you do it in this manner, right, where you create a variable and assign it the open method, right, this variable will be open, and you will have to manually tell it to close, right? So you will have to say infile.close, right? If you do it in this manner, notice that you are opening a code block, right? With open nums.txt, w as out file, and then colon. After that, starts the code block for what you want to do while this file is open. Once you exit out of this code block, it will close on its own. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, brother. You don't have to close anything. It'll close on its own. This is important, guys, that you guys understand how this is working in opening files, because your assessment is going to need this. You will be given a long piece of some file, and it will have like hundreds upon thousands of data, and you have to format this data, import it into your class and object, and then use the data that you are receiving from this file to instantiate different objects. The reason I say that is because unfortunately I didn't go through foundations of programming. I didn't know it even existed, right? And then I came in, and then there's all these people that went through and they knew how to work with files. I don't know what the heck happened. I think I missed this class. Maybe I wasn't paying attention or what happened, but I had no idea what the heck this was, how these files were being opened. And then it was being asked from me on the assessment. And this part right here specifically is what held me back so much on that assessment, because I did not know how to grab this data and how to format it. You're gonna have to format and grab data from a text file, a CSV to be specific. It's gonna be a lot of data, so make sure you guys understand as well. So, all right, next, JSON. JSON, as you guys already know, stands for JavaScript Object Notation. We saw this a little bit when working with APIs, when we were making our calls to the Cocktail API, the Poke API. We were able to grab back our data. Remember, we were like doing the .json method. It formatted our data after we made our fetch request, right? This is what we were getting back, this JSON. Although this format came from JavaScript, it's actually language independent. This format allows you to exchange data between different computer languages. Pay attention because you will be seeing a lot of this notation. This is very, very true. You will be seeing a lot of this. Get familiar with how to read your JSON data. We're going to talk about writing and reading JSON, right? So it's going to be very similar to the text files. So notice, actually, we'll call it long. So I'm gonna go ahead and go back to where my Siamese was. For catalyst, cat plus. All right. So what we are going to do, I want you guys to get back your cat list, add an additional cat. We'll add ragdoll. Okay. All right. So what's gonna happen? Once you get back to this, at the very top, you're going to import JSON. Import JSON. Right, JSON will allow you to use certain methods. All right, the method we are looking to use is going to be dump, right, and load. Let's look at our cast.txt before we move forward with this code, right? This is how our cast.txt looked like before. As a matter of fact, I'll run it again because I think we just updated it. I'm gonna run it again. That's how it looks like. We have 5 cats: Siamese, Max, Obsidian, Savannah, and Ragdoll. Right? Nothing special here. Now going back to this, we imported JSON. We have our cat list. And now we're going to change this up a little bit on line 6 and 7. We are going to remove line 6 and 7. And what we are going to do is change this to JSON.dump. We are going to call the JSON module that we have. We are going to use the method that the JSON module has called .dump. And then what do we want to dump? I want to dump this cat list, right? This list. Where do I want to dump it? Inside of out file. Right? Inside of out file. It's going to take those 2 parameters, what you're dumping and where you're dumping it at. Right? Next, let's actually run this. Let's test it out before we move forward. I want you to run this and then go look at your cast.txt again. It changed. It no longer looks like text. Oh, actually, let's do something real quick. Let me replace this. I don't think it's gonna matter. Rename. We're gonna call this a .json file. because we made it a text one. And then let's change this to JSON. It won't really matter. I knew it wasn't gonna matter. But just to ensure that we're doing things how it should be done. All right. This is a JSON file, right? So we dumped into it. Notice that it changed. It is no longer text, right? That format text that we had where it was just back to back. It was able to add it here, like just strictly how we gave it in there, like an array, a list, right? And it took it in. Next, we're gonna go use the next line of code, which is gonna be with open. So we're gonna open it up again. Same thing. As a matter of fact, just you can copy line 5 and then paste it in line 8. The only thing you're gonna change is the W. You're gonna add it to an R because we're gonna read. We're not gonna write. We're gonna read. And then change out file to in file. Right? We are calling. So the out file, in file. What does it mean by out file, Roger? What does it mean by in file? Right? If it's going out or it's going in, right? It's in the name. If we are trying to grab something from it, we typically call it in file. If we're trying to write out onto something, we're calling it out file, right? That's kind of where the naming conventions come from. So, line 8 in file. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable. I'm going to call it restored list, and I'm going to assign to it JSON. I'm calling the module JSON.load, right? This time I'm loading. I'm no longer dumping data out. I'm going to load it back in. So I'm going to say JSON.load. What do I want to load? I want to load inside within the restored list variable. I want to load in file. Let's run it. Actually, also before we move forward, I want to print out restored list so we can see what it looks like. Print restored list. So it runs cats.json hasn't changed, obviously, because we haven't changed anything. But we are able to load in JSON data from a JSON file and then print it out. Right? Notice that we printed out here in the console, Siamese, Nats, and Obsidian, as well as Savannah and Ragdoll. So not only can we write into a JSON file, we are able to take in information from a JSON file, right? And that's how it's done. If it is JSON data, you need to import JSON and you need to use the JSON.loads so you can get it formatted like it should be formatted. If not, you'll get some weird functionality. If you try to load it in as just regular text, you might get weird data. It's not going to look formatted like it should, right? You won't know what starts with what, where the data is going. So you need JSON.load, JSON.dump.
Quick question, and I might be getting ahead. I noticed, especially with the JSON, when you write a file, it's not saving that file in the current directory.
What do you mean?
Is there a method that you have to do in order to save that file? Say, like after the program is done, you can like have that saved so you can open it. How can you do that? Because
What do you
I
mean?
didn't save.
Save. It did
Like
save. Was it not?
For me, I mean, I guess I didn't make the file, but I figured with the with open cats.json with the write, it should make a new file. Do you have to make that new file prior to executing this code, or is it?
If you're writing, you don't have to, because with the W, it'll write that new file for you, right? If you are
Yeah.
reading, you will get an error.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still not seeing it though. Like it didn't save. Like I have the exact same code that you do, and like I didn't make it prior to hand, and it's not coming up in my terminal when I.
Let's try something out. Let's see. I'll call this one animals.json. Let's run it. It created for me animals.json.
Okay, I'll have to figure
Uh,
that out.
yeah, you want to show us real quick? I can spare you like
Yeah.
2 minutes.
Yeah, so, or maybe because I just pressed the play button. Let me try actually doing. What
Yeah, the
did I
play
tell
button
this?
didn't work for me neither. I had to type in Python 3.
There we go.
There you go. Good job. Whoever said that, I believe it was Daryl. Thank you for that.
Yeah, that's my bad. Thank you.
It's all
Yeah,
good, brother.
That was James.
Oh,
So
James,
what
James.
does the JSON.load do again?
JSON.loads, it'll open up a JSON file and it'll grab the JSON within that file and load it into your Python file. Right. So dumps right into a file, load, grabs information from that file and brings it in. Right. Load, dump. Does that make sense?
So I'm trying to figure out, like, you say it brings it in and loads it into your Python file, but I didn't see it.
Okay, yeah, so let's see it again, right? So let me go ahead and let's delete cat.json. All right, I am deleting this. I'm gonna go ahead and comment this out. There's no JSON file that exists here, right? I deleted it. There's nothing there. Inside this Python file that I am in, I imported this method called this module called JSON. I created this list called cat list, right? And then I am doing the command with open. I want to open a file called cats.json, right? Obviously, if I try to read a file and that doesn't exist, I'm gonna get an error. But for some reason, when I use a W, from what I've learned, it'll create the file for me. So notice I don't have a cats.json, but that's okay because the write method will create the file for me. So I do with open cats.json. I want to write into this file and I want to call it as out file. What I want to do is I want to use the JSON module to utilize the .dump method. And then this .dump method will take two arguments. The first argument is what do you want to dump? The second argument is where do you want to dump it? Right? I want to dump my cat list and I want to dump it within the out file, right? What is out file? That's my cats.json. So this line of code right here is going to create a cats.json, right? So let's go ahead and run it. Notice cats.json. Open it up. And it created a JSON file, right? And there is JSON in it. Okay. There's JSON in it. Now, let's go ahead and come back to this. I'm going to comment out line 3 to 6. Now let's uncomment line 8. The only thing this file is doing now, it is opening a JSON file, right? It's opening a JSON file. It's calling it as in file. All I'm doing is reading it. I'm not writing or anything into it. I'm going to read from this JSON file. I'm going to create a variable called restored list, and I'm using JSON.load. What do I want to load? I want to load the entirety of in file. Notice I'm going to print restored list, and let's also do this. Let's go ahead and print what type is restored list. I wonder if it's going to tell me what it is. It's probably just going to tell me list if I'm being honest with you, but I wonder if it tells me if it's JSON or not. I don't think it's going to tell me that, but let's try it out. I'm going to run this again. And let's check it out. We see here that it is printing out restored list. That means it successfully went inside of cats.json. It read it. It grabbed the information by using json.load, right? It grabbed all the information from infile by using json.load and it saved it within restored list. And I'm able to print it out, right? So json.load goes into a file, grabs the information and brings it back to the file within where you're calling that method, right? So it grabs data from other files. Does that make sense? Yay or nay? Okay. Yeah, it just loads JSON from other files into the file where I'm calling it. That's it.
Okay, I'm tracking now. So basically, if we really wanted to see it in another place other than on our screen, we would use the variable restored list and send it to another file if we wanted to, save it in another file.
Sure. Yeah, you could do that too. What's important, why do we use JSON.load, right? Let's say you're creating classes and objects for different menu items, right? For a company, right? A business. Let's say they already have for you, they have a huge JSON file that already has pre-made their entire menu. You can just load in that information yourself by importing that file into your code, right? By using JSON.load instead of having to manually go through everything, right? And then you can actually even format it as well. That's kind of why it's just helpful, right? You'll see a little bit more how that works in a bit. I promise you. We'll have some examples here. All right. So student practice, the first student practice we will have is going to be the readwrite.py, right? It's going to use lesson 10. So go to lesson 10, read write. Let's check it out, guys. So you're going to write code that opens a file named mary.txt and writes to that file the first 4 lines of the nursery rhyme, Mary Had a Little Lamb, with each line being written on a different line of the file. Then you're going to write that code that opens that file and reads it, printing out each line as it goes. Use the strip method to strip off the new line characters. And then I want you guys to create a dictionary that maps the numbers 1 through 13 to the names William, Patrick, John, yada, yada, right? So on and so forth. You're going to write that code that writes this dictionary to a JSON file and reads it as well. Time is 6:17. You guys have until 6:37 to complete this. At 7:37, I want you guys to go on a break, and then we will come back at 6:47. Does that make sense? You guys got 20 minutes. Actually, let's go with 15 minutes. Let's go. You guys got to 6:30. Do this. So 6:30. At 6:30, go on break. We'll come back at 6:40. Sound good? I think the first one's pretty easy, so we'll go back pretty quickly. All right, I'll see you guys at 6:40. I gotta use version. Be back. All right, so where do we leave off? We broke off to get some time to work on the read-write assignment. Then we went into a 10-minute break. So we're gonna go ahead and pick off from where we left off. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Awesome. Right. So the first part of the assignment was to write the code that opens a file named mary.txt, right? And it writes to that file the first 4 lines of the nursery rhyme. All right, so let's go ahead and kind of split this up real quick. Let's go to the readwrite.py. Now, let's try it out. So I don't really know this nursery, right? So I'm gonna Google it real quick. Mary, I believe it's called Mary Had a Little Lamb. I didn't really grow with this. Mary Had a Little Lamb lyrics. All right, so it should look something like this. Mary had a little lamb, his fleece was white as snow. To write the code, to file the first 4 lines of their story. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this because I don't know it by memory. And we are just gonna mess around with it, right? So we can how do we want to do this? Well, there's different ways of doing it. You can make it a whole string. I am gonna do it a little bit more simpler. I'm gonna say Mary lyrics is equal to, right? And then I'm just gonna go ahead and copy and paste this. What happened? What did I just do? Copy and paste the lyrics in here. Notice that we have Mary had a little lamb, quotation marks, comma. Then I'm gonna say his fleece was white as snow. I'll put that like that. I'm pretty supposed to have a yeah. That's weird. What a weird song, dude. Okay, let's put an equal sign here. And everywhere the child went. We'll put that in here. And then last one was be that little lamb was sure to go. Yeah, okay. So you guys could have done it a little bit different. You could have made just one big string and kind of, broke it apart at different commas. It really does not really matter, right? There's no specification of what route to take. The only thing I really care about is that you were able to write on there, right? Multiple lines. So here I have my list. I have Mary lyrics. Mary had a little lamb, comma, his fleece was white as snow, yeah, comma, and everywhere the child went, the little lamb was sure to go, yeah. This song is by Double Trouble. I don't think these are the accurate lyrics. Okay, here we go. My bad. This isn't the most accurate lyrics. That was some bootleg Mary Had a Little Lamb song. Okay, here we go. This is a more accurate one. I'm gonna be using a bootleg Mary Had a Little Lamb. What is in here? And why is it giving me some? Okay. Okay, and everywhere that child went, that little lamb was sure to go. All right, whatever, it don't matter. So I got my Mary lyrics. The next part of the assignment is to actually write into our file, right? So we write to that file, that first 4 lines of the nursery rhyme. So we're gonna come down here and we are going to say with open, right? Well, what do I want to open? I have to open a Mary.txt file. And what am I doing? I am writing into it. Because this text is going out to a file, I'm gonna say as out file, right? As out file. Okay. Now, after the colon, we get to put what we want to do. So I'm gonna say for a line in Mary lyrics, right? I'm gonna go ahead and loop through my list. For a line in Mary lyrics, I want to say out file dot write. And I want to write that line. And then after every line, I need to add a new line, right? Very simple, almost very close to the cat assignment. Or we can run this. Come out here. We see that we created a Mary.txt file. Mary had a little lamb. All right, so we see it. It's being printed out here. It works, right? Maybe the lyrics aren't perfect because I got the bootleg versions of it, but it's okay. Point is, I was able to go in there, use strip to strip off the new line characters. Oh, we have to write the code that opens that file and reads it, printing out each line as it goes. Okay, so we were able to write it, and now we have to be able to open it and read it and print it out, correct? So next, after that code block, we say with open. I want to open up that Mary.txt file again. And this time I'm going to read. I'm going to say as in file, right? So now we're grabbing the stuff from there. And I'm going to say for line and in file, we should just be able to print, right? Let's try out print line. Let's see how that works. All right, cool. So we see here, it's doing what we wanted to do. Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Mary had a little lamb, his fleece white as snow. And everywhere that child went, that little lamb was sure to go. Yeah, okay. So it's doing what we're doing, but we can get some weird formatting here. There's some spacing. I don't like that. So we have to remove that new line, that .txt naturally has, and there we go. So we get the formatted version of it. So very simple, guys, right? Very simple. You guys understand how this works now? Very straightforward. Okay, cool. Next, it's gonna be the create dictionary that maps the numbers 1 through 13. Right? I already have it typed out because I'm not gonna spend the next 5 minutes trying to type this out and waste your time. So let's go ahead and copy and paste the dictionary. All right, so I have the name dictionary. So we're gonna create a dictionary that maps the numbers 1 through 13, right? Just like this. So the names William, Patrick, so on and so forth. And then we have to write that code. So write the code that writes this dictionary to a JSON file and reads it as well. So let's go ahead and comment this out. We don't need all this extra code before this. And who wants to walk me through this part? Right? A brave volunteer. How should we do this? All right, Mike, go ahead. Thank you for volunteering. So walk me through how can we start this process?
Okay, we need to write the JSON data, so use with open.
With open?
Open, yes, on the name of file.
What do we want to call this?
Nummap JSON.
Nummap.json. Okay, that's fine. Nummap.json.
Comma. W. After the bracket, as write file or in file, whatever.
We'll call it out file, right? Because we're gonna write out to a third party file. We can do that.
We have a colon, enter. You're gonna put JSON.dump, the object name.
What's going on here? What's going on here, Mike?
Import JSON?
Did I? I did not.
Okay.
So that's probably a good idea. We should probably import JSON.
Yes.
So import JSON. Okay. So there we go. Now it's working. JSON.dump.
Open object name.
The
What is your
object name, it's called name dictionary, right? It's not object specifically, but what do I want to dump into it? Yeah, it's gonna be the name dictionary. And then what?
Comma, and then the variable out file.
Out file. All right. Now let's see if that works, guys. Out file. Let's run this. We're gonna see down here nummap.json. I can open it up. And also we're starting to get some data very similar to how our JSON looks like, right? Our dictionaries. Thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate that walkthrough. Very straightforward. Now
Thank
we
you.
also see that we have to be able to write the code that writes the dictionary to a JSON file and reads it as well. So we're able to open it and write it. Let's go ahead and read it. So we're gonna say with open. I want to open that nummap.json. And this time, because it's already going to be created, we should be able to just do comma apostrophe R. And we're gonna say as in file because we're gonna go ahead and import something from there. We're gonna say JSON.load. What do I want to load? I want to load. I'm gonna load in file. All of in file, and then let's go ahead and print out in file. In file. We can run our readwrite.py. We have some weird stuff here. What's going on? With open, we have our map. Some weird functionality here. Why is it printing out with open and nummap.json? Reading as in file, JSON.load. We are loading. Maybe because I need to save it to a variable. We'll call this name dictionary is equal to that. Let's go ahead and print out our name dictionary. Probably why we're getting some weird functionality here. Of course, that's what it was. Something stupid, dude. There we go. So we go ahead and we do with open. What do I want to open? I want to open our nummap .json file that Mike assisted me in creating. We're gonna read through it. We're gonna import it as in file, right? I want to create a variable here called name dictionary, and within this variable, I am loading all the information that's within in file, and then I print out my dictionary. And notice I print it out in a JSON format. Exactly what I created. Exactly what's in the JSON file, right? Very straightforward, very straightforward. All right, good job, guys. We're gonna go ahead and move forward. So that concludes the read write.py. The next one's gonna be file sum.py. So we're gonna go to file sum.py. Let's check out what this readme is asking from us. So you're gonna write a function named file sum that takes as a parameter the name of a text file that contains a list of numbers one to a line like this. So essentially, you're going to have to create a file, right? A text file, and you know, manually add these list of numbers, right? The function to sum the values in the file and write the sum, just that number, to a text file named sum.text. If the function can't find a file containing the list of numbers, throw a file not found error. Right? So now we're gonna go ahead and add this stuff to a function and how it's gonna work to a function, right? So you have to create this function, guys. It's gonna take as a parameter some kind of string. This string is gonna be whatever this text file should be called, right? This text file, you guys will create it, add some random freaking numbers in there, right? It should be able to load in all this information from this text file that you pass in as an argument. And then once it grabs all this information, right? All these integers, right? We get the sum. We need to grab that sum and then add that sum to a different text file, right? Called sum.txt, right? A different text file. It's not going to go back to the same one. It's going to be a different one, right? Notice that we also have to see if the file is containing list numbers, and we can't find that file, we need to throw a file not found error. Reference the slides, right? There was already a code snippet in there that we saw earlier of how that was done using a try and except block. So you have the answers for all this. You guys know how to make functions. We already know how to write into a text file. We know how to read from a text file, right? We know how to sum things, and we know how to do try and except blocks. All right, we did that during OOP. So time is 6:55, guys. Let's go ahead and give this 15 minutes. We will come back at 6:10, and then we will talk through it and then go into our last break. Okay, let's go ahead and talk through this assignment. So the assignment was called file sum. Can you guys see my screen? Am I sharing?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is file sum. Let's go ahead and split this. So the assignment was to write a function and name file sum. So we're gonna go ahead and define this function, file sum. It takes as a parameter the name of text file. So we just say text file, right? That in this file contains a list of numbers, one to a line like this. So let's go ahead and put path real quick. Let's just create that text file. I don't believe I have it, so we'll call this num list.txt. I'm going to use the example, put it in there, save it, come back out here. All right. So it's supposed to take it in as a parameter, right? The function should sum the values in the file and write the sum. So let's go ahead and open that file. So we're going to say with open, what am I opening? I'm opening text file. What am I going to be doing? I should be reading from it, right? Right function, okay, yeah, I should be reading from it. And I'm gonna say as in file, right? Because it's coming in. Nothing's going out, it's coming in. So let's make sure it's doing what it should be doing. So we can open up the file and we can say for line in the file print line. All right. This is how like you kind of like debug your code to ensure that it's doing what it should be doing. Let me cd into file sum and then Python file sum.py. All right, obviously nothing's running because I'm not even calling this. So I'm gonna go ahead and call my file sum function, and then I'm gonna type in the text name of my txt file. Right. So let's see if this is working so far. Okay. So my code called the function. It took in the name of that file, right? Numbless. So it took in that name of that file, it read it as in file, and then for line in line, I'm printing out each line. Okay, good. So far, so good. I'm able to grab every single number. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna create a variable called total. So total is equal to 0. And now what's gonna happen is I'm gonna grab every single line in here, right? Let's make sure it's being stripped. Okay, we go back here. All right, awesome. So the numbers need to be stripped, right? But also, what are these? We can do type. Let's see what is this, because obviously we're working with numbers right now, so we probably want to ensure they're all integers. Notice that they're strings, so we're probably gonna also have to wrap this around an int tag, right? So once again, we should be able to print. Oh, what's going on here? It says invalid literal for integer with base of 10. At which one? Literally right at the first one. The very first one it gave me an error. Why is that, guys? Why am I getting error here?
It's a float.
It's a float, right? It's trying to convert it into an int, but it's a float. So let's just go ahead and use float to ensure they're all floats. Keep them all floats, whatever. No big deal. So now we're able to print, convert them to float, and they're all stripped. So we can go ahead and remove this print tag. And then as we loop through, we can just do total plus equals each number, right? And as it's done with the for loop, I can say, let's say print total and see how that looks like. And this is kind of how you debug and work on your function to ensure it's doing what it should be doing. Notice we get 235, so it's working, guys. I don't know if this is the actually correct answer, but just by looking at my numbers here, it looks pretty spot on. So that's my sum. So far, so good. This did what it should be doing. So let's add some comments here. So the first part opens my text file and sums the floats. Right? So that's the first part. Next, I have to write the total into a new file called sum.txt. If I'm correct, that should be the instructions. So the function should sum the values in the file and write the sum, just the number, to a text file named sum.txt. So let's do that. So with open, I want to open a new file. It's supposed to be called sum.txt. I'm going to write into it. I'm going to say as out file because I'm going to go ahead and put stuff into it. As out file. What I'm going to do, I'm going to say out file dot write. What am I writing? I am writing the total. Total. And honestly, that should just be it. It's just one number, right? Total. I shouldn't get an issue. It should just convert it to a string if I'm being honest with you. Notice that we also have if the function can't find the file containing the list numbers, throw a file not found error. So let's go ahead and say try. Put this bad boy in the code block. And then say except file not found error. Print file was not found. And realistically, this should also be in there because this shouldn't happen unless we get a total, right? So this is what your program should look, guys. It should look like, right? Now let's try it out. I'm gonna go ahead and run this file, and I get an argument. I'm sorry, an argument, an issue. Right argument must be string, not float, of course. So back to my total. I'm just gonna put a string wrapper around it, right? Because it's picky. There we go. So my file ran. No news is good news, right? So no feedback is good feedback. So obviously nothing, there was no error. It did not yell at me. We come to the left side. We see the sum.txt, guys. We can click it. We have 235.969. So it ran everything effectively. It got my total. It created that new txt file and it wrote my new my total in there. Right? Freaking awesome. Right? Was everyone able to follow along? Do you guys understand how this worked? Right, pretty cool. All right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and take our last break of the day. I'll see you guys in 10 minutes, okay? All right, guys, let's go ahead and come back. We're gonna start the next assignment. This is gonna be your noble data. All right, so I'll share my screen real quick so we can talk about it. Essentially, for this, you will import a JSON module. And surprise, I lied. You will have to use a class here. All right. So you're gonna write a class named Noble Data that reads the nobles.json file and allows the user to search that data. Where is the nobles.json file? It's here within the Noble Data folder. Look at this, guys. This is gonna be the JSON you have to parse through. You need to be able to go through all of this. Yeah, go through all of this. Right? You need to be able to go through all that data. Your class should have an init method that reads the file and stores it in whatever data member you prefer, right? Any data member of the Noble Data class must be private. All right, so you guys already know how to create classes, how to make init methods. You guys saw it during the Space Invaders, how we can like say different data members within the init method, even actually do some functionality within the init method. So it doesn't just have to be data members, but that's where you would declare it, right? And then you have to create a method named search noble that takes as a parameter a year and a category and returns a sorted list of all in normal English dictionary order of the surnames for the winners in that category for that year. Up to 3 people can share the prize, right? The year will be a string. We see here an example, 1975, right? Not a number. The categories are chemistry, economics, literature, peace, physics, and medicine. For example, your class should be used like this, right? We create a data variable here called ND, which essentially ends up being a Noble Data object, right? And then they use ND.search Noble. It takes in the year and the category, both being strings, and then it should return to them who it is, right? The people. A sorted list, right, in normal English dictionary order. So make it happen. Y'all got 20 minutes. So before we stop the recording, I sent you guys the nobledata.py. So we're gonna go ahead and do our code along. Let me move the JSON over here. As well as the README. Now, let's check it out. So we're gonna have to import a JSON
You're not
object.
sharing your screen, Roger.
Thank you. Appreciate the reminder. I'm sorry, I'm so sick. So we have to import a JSON module, right? Because we're gonna have to use a JSON essentially object. So we're gonna go ahead and let's do that. Let's import JSON. And we have to write a class named Noble Data that reads the nobles.json file and allows the user to search that data. So let's create that class noble data. Go away, Norton. Noble data. And let's create our init method. So your class should have an init method that reads the file and stores it in whatever data member you prefer. Notice that it says read the file. It does not say take as a parameter, as an argument, nothing. It just, the init method itself, all it does is reads the file and stores it in whatever data member you prefer. So all we're gonna do is that self here. And then we're gonna say with open, and we're gonna open that file, right? So it's supposed to be nobles.json. So nobles.json. It's supposed to read the file. So it's gonna be a R. And it stores it in whatever data member that we prefer. So we're gonna say as noble file, right? And then we're gonna create our data members. We do self._noble data is equal to json.load. And then pass in noble file. I just save it to that data, right? So far, so good. Now it needs to be private. So any data member of the noble data class must be private. So it is private. Awesome. All right, next is going to be a method named search noble that takes as a parameter a year in the category. So define search noble year and category. And what it's supposed to do is take as a parameter a year in a category and returns a sorted list in normal English, right? A normal dictionary order of the surnames for the winners in that category for that year. Okay, well, let's go ahead. Let's take this step by step and kind of visualize what our nobles.json is doing. So let's go ahead and return self._noble data, right? Because I'm assuming we're gonna have to use this data member, right? We are probably not within the file, so let's go to cd noble data and run. Oh, well, notice we haven't created an actual noble data object. So down here, we're gonna say noble object is equal to noble data, right? And it doesn't take anything the init method. And then let's go ahead and print whatever noble object is doing whenever we do search noble, right? Now we can go ahead and run this file, noble data.py. Missing two arguments, year and category. All right, obviously. Well, let's remove this for now. Let's see what noble data is doing for me. Noble data is printing out essentially everything. I mean, like it should, honestly, like it really should. It's just a JSON object. I didn't do any formatting. It's going to give it to me exactly how it looks like in here. So I need to use the year and the category to grab something specifically. Well, let's look at this noble JSON data first, right? What is the keys and values, right? So the top level, the first key we have, and honestly, this key kind of is, I believe, is the only key we have at the top level is prices. And let's see what comes after prices. Notice that the prices sticks here to let us know what key we're still working on. And prices go all the way down, right? And the only top level key is price. So I know right off the bat, we're gonna have to go within prices. And then after prices, we need to get what's the next key after prices?
It's a list.
It's a list, right? So prices is the key with a value of a list, and this list is a list of other objects. I'm sorry, I'm sick, right? The first one is, it looks like year 2022, category chemistry, right? Laureates is the people who won, it looks like it. The keyword is laureates. Value is another list with looks like different people ID of so-and-so, Caroline, surname, motivation, share, yada, yada. Look like 3 people won this one for chemistry. 2022 economics, right? Here's 3 other people. 2022 literature, only 1 person. 2022 peace, 22 physics, 2022 medicine, and then it goes to 2021, right? So it covers all those 5 or 6 categories that they mentioned in the README, and then it goes down to next year. Okay, so I know that within my search notebook, I'm gonna have to go through here and loop through it, right? And we're gonna use the year and the category to our advantage. So our example was an example given to us. We're gonna use 2001 in economics for this example. So let's go ahead and add it in here. 2001 and economics. Well, economics, is there any spelling in here in economics? Does it have to be a certain way? Is it all lowercase? It looks like it's gonna be at lowercase. We're looking for category, right? So we're gonna have to return self data, but let's do prizes, right? Open and close brackets, and we are looking for prizes. Prizes is gonna return to us a list of other objects. And because of the list, there's no easy way of doing it. We're gonna have to loop through every single item in this list. So we're gonna have to do for what do we want to call it? For object in self dot underscore number data prizes, right? And we're gonna go into each object and notice that each object is it starts with a year, right? So the first keyword should be a year. So once you start looping, it's gonna grab the first item on this list. Right, this is the first item in that list within prizes. And this item is an object with key value pairs. The first key it has is year, right? The first key it has is year. So I should probably check, hey, does year match what this is? So we should be able to do for object in self dot underscore enable data. We'll use the key of price to grab it. And we're gonna say if actually we'll call this they're objectives. We'll call it prize objective if prize object is equal if price object year, right? Because we're trying to grab the first object, right? This is the first object when we look through it. We want to grab the keyword year. So if first project object year, which will return to us its value, which should be the year, matches the year that we have within here as an argument, then we want to move forward, right? So if price year is equal to year, then we should have that. What else we're looking for? We're looking for the category. So we should say if price object year is equal to the year we have in our argument, and price object category, right? We see the next one, category. Category is equal to our category passed in within our arguments, then we are in the correct object, right? We are in the correct object, right? That means we should be able to grab all the people that were awarded an award for chemistry in the year 2022, and that is found within Loretz, right? So we will only move forward within this key value pair if the year in the category matches. So once we've identified that, hey, check it out. The year matches, guys, the category matches. That means that we can go within the Loretz. So we should be able to go within Loretz. And we want to grab every single person. Notice that Loretz is the key. The value is another list. To be able to grab everything in here, we could just say like all awardees is equal to prize object Lorette. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, guys. I don't know if it's Lorette or what, but this right here will return to us a list of other objects within this key value pair. We essentially want to be able to grab everything. This would assign it to this, but we don't want to essentially just assign it. We want to grab directly the people within here. Maybe we should make a list of the people we're looking for, right? So we should say like list of surnames, right? Because we're gonna have to format our answer and add it somewhere. I believe that's what we need, right? The year. Okay, so we need. What do we need to return? It takes the primary year and category and returns a sorted list, right? So it has to be a sorted list in normal English dictionary order of the surnames for the winners. So essentially, once we find the winners for the year in the category, we need to get the surnames of each awardee and add it to this list, right? So how do we grab this list of Lorettes? Well, we use the Lorette's key, and it will return to us the list. So how about we do a for loop for awardee in price object Lorettes, right? This will start a for loop of every single object within this list. And once we get the object, what are we looking for, guys? We're looking for the surname. So it should be awardee bracket. We're looking for surname, right? And this should be added within our list of surnames. So list of surnames dot append whatever comes back from awardee surname, right? Everyone still with me, guys? Once it loops through all that, we should have all the awardees. And now all I'm going to do at the very end is just do list of surnames dot sorted, right? Because we call it sorted surnames is equal to list of surnames dot sorted. Or I think, how do we do this method? I think sorted list of surnames. I'm sorry. I'm really bad with this sorted and sort method. You guys remember the lesson, right? So essentially this should take this list of surnames, sort them and save it to sorted surnames. And then all we have to do is just return sorted surnames, right? Now let's give this a try. Let's see what it is doing for us. Let's go ahead and clear and run this. And we give Akerlof, Spence, and Stiglitz. I don't know if that's correct. Let's look for it. 2001. Need to go a lot lower. 2009. All right, 2000. 2001, we're looking for economics. Okay, economics, we have Akerlof, that's correct. We have Spence, and then we have Stiglitz. So it works, guys. It works. It is in order. Yeah, it's in order. It's in order. Pretty straightforward, right, guys? Good to go.
Yes, I had realized what I did wrong. I had opened that when I went to do the JSON, I opened it as R. And so that's what I needed to not do. But then once I removed that, it made it a dictionary object. So
What do you mean? I opened it as R2. All I'm doing is reading. How is
So-
it different than
so I had looked it up. So on mine, I had initially as I had put open file and then I did R. And so and then I used the load to read in that file and it made all of it a string. But then once I removed the R and I used load, then it made it from a dictionary.
Please show me. I'm getting a little confused of what you're saying.
Okay, not a problem. Hold on. Where's my Zoom at? Zoom. Hey. Okay, share. Go here. Okay, so initially, do you see my screen?
Correct. I do.
Okay, shit. How do I? Here. Wait, no. Wait, module. Yeah, let's do this. Okay, so right now it should be an object up class dig, and when I did it as open or read. Why is it not doing it now? Control
Do you
shift.
yet have you declared have you
Uh,
instantiated that noble data somewhere?
Let me put it back. Oh no, what did I have? JSON.load self read file not load. Maybe it was this one I had it as. Oh no. Keep going back. I made some changes. Read file load R. Maybe it was this one.
Take off the S on line 10.
That's how far back it's going, but yeah, I don't know what happened. But initially, when I was reading in the data, when I had it set up like this, it was giving me back a string object.
Have
So-
you, where are you instantiating this class?
Oh, here.
Okay, so you are running the noble data. Are you calling the method?
Yeah. Here. ND JSON data that's calling it here. And this is just returning the data for it.
Okay, let me see. Noble data.py again. Are you printing it out?
So now let me.
Oh, you're printing out type. Get rid of type on line 10.
Yeah, because I had that there because I was initially getting back a string object.
It's a dictionary, right? Is this what you were getting?
So before I was getting this, but it was as a string though. That was the thing. It was.
So-
It was yeah,
I wish I could see what you meant. I'm so confused.
it's okay. I don't. And it's not going back that far now.
That far? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, at least you guys kind of got to be able to see this. Now you guys have like a way to go back and review if you guys want to try this out. But we're gonna go ahead and move forward into our last assignment, I believe, for the day. Noble data.py. We're gonna do the SAT one. The SAT one is a little difficult. Um, so let's check it out. We're gonna go into our SAT data. And our README. So for this project, you're going to import the JSON module as well. You're going to write a class named SAT data, right? That's supposed to read the SAT.json file. This is what it looks like. All right, it's a bunch of random information that you have no idea about. You're supposed to read that SAT.json file and write the data to a text file in CSV format. Right, so a CSV is a very simple format, just commas separating columns and new lines separating rows. See the note below about commas that are part of field names. You'll see an example of CSV format below. There's a CSV module for Python, but you will not use it for this project. Your class should have an init method that reads the file and stores it in whatever data member you prefer. Any data member of the SAT data class must be private. So let's kind of, let's look at the preemie. Where is the example? So here it is. No, it's not a good example. Where is my file? Okay, here we go. This is what a CSV looks like, right? Essentially, it is like a text file, and it has comma separated values. So these are all different values. The first one, these are the first row. Technically, it tends to be the header, right? That tells you what each column is, right? So first row typically is known as your headers, right? So we have DBN, we have school name, number of test takers, critical reading mean, mathematics mean, and writing mean. Notice that it's color coded for me because I have an extension for it. I believe you guys should have the extension too. But then after the headers, you actually have the data itself. It's called CSV file because it stands for comma separated values. Notice that every different value type is separated by commas here. This is what a CSV kind of looks like. You can kind of open this up too as well if you wanted to. As a look at normal things. Let me see if I can show you. Reveal in File Explorer. Right, so look at this. It's a SAT College Board 2010 results.csv. Look what it looks like when I open the actual document. Essentially, it looks like this. Right, here is the header. Right, and then all the data. So you're able to essentially work with Excel documents. Right, it just looks a little bit different for us because it's in VS Code, but that's what a CSV file is. So we have to go through the CSV file. And afterwards is create a method called save as CSV that takes as a parameter a list of DBNs, right? Which stands for district bureau numbers, and saves a CSV file that looks like the SAT College Board, like the same one that I showed you, with only the rows that correspond to the DBNs of the list. Essentially, you have a list of DBNs, right? You have a list of different students. You're like, you know what? I want to find the results of the specific 5 students, right? So the save as CSV method should be able to take this list of different students and look for them through the SAT College Board 2010 results.csv file, find their information, and save it in a different file, I believe. Yeah, right. It should output it in a different file. So for example, notice that they create here an object called SAT data. Is they save it inside of SD. They create a list called DBNs. It's just a list of DBNs, the district bureau numbers. And then they call the SAT data object and they use the save as CSV method with the list inside of it. You may hard code the column headers instead of having to read them from the JSON file, or you guys can work on it on your own and actually kind of figure it out. So it's still a little bit the same. It's just we're adding CSV, but it's still the same. It's just another text file essentially. All right, so don't let the CSV scare you. But that's gonna be the assignment. We are going to actually stop here, but that'll be the next assignment for you guys. This will be your homework for the weekend. Let me stop the recording.